Tadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishwaro Guratmeti Murti Beda Vibhagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sarvavedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satguru Pranatoshmaham Om Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. Uh, so Krishna is still wrapping up the topic of those six Sanskrit terms which gave origin to this chapter 13. He's still dealing with the nature of Brahman as Nyaya. So he's describing Parabrahma or Paramatma, howsoever we prefer. We hear that it's the most, it's subtler than the most subtle, and that is a good pointer because we know the subtle world of energies which are very, very invisible, being Maya, Prakriti, the most subtle energy we see in meteor. It's the nature of Maya is this extreme nature as Prakriti, upon which the three energies emerge. So, and then the scriptures, they point out to the fact that Brahman conscious existence is more subtle, it's subtler than the Prakriti of Maya. So, and then of course it's subtler than space. So, because we're going to be looking into the nature of space, we have been looking at the nature of space because it's very subtle, even to be understood, philosophically. Space is difficult to be understood philosophically. Time as well, it's more like esoteric kind of concept because they say that the fourth dimension is time and so on. So, and it's the most subtle, it's the only reality, it's one without a second. Everything else is a superimposition. As we know, Parabrahman is Nirguna. All of our perceptive organs and the instruments can capture only the guna-made objects, even conceptual objects. They are made out of sattva guna, presenting some cognitive understanding of our environment and in the way we relate to it and so on. So we have Brahman as something that cannot be captured by our sensory perception. We don't have the instrument, and we don't need the instrument. We need instrument to capture Brahman? No. It's the same thing as somebody who is a multi-millionaire going to a place to buy lottery tickets because they want to win a prize. So he does not need to buy a lottery ticket. He's already multi-millionaire, So in this way, we don't need to contact Brahman through the sense organs. There is no need to try to get to know Brahman in that sense, to experience Brahman, because Brahman cannot be accessed by sensory perception, and furthermore, it does not need to be known by sensory perception because it's my very nature. It's this one's very nature. And this understanding, of course, needs to be doubtless, firm, not subject to forgetfulness understanding. We call it direct self-knowledge. So this one principle called Satchitananda Brahmana appears as divided. I think now yesterday, the other day, I present the division. The first fundamental division is Jiva, as consciousness appearing as the experiencing entity, the Jiva, the human Jiva, and the world around the Jiva, Aham and Idam. Yeah? So I, the Jiva, and I face the otherness of the world before my eyes, before my sense organs. So there is a division, experiencer, experienced. Sometimes it's presented as a triad, sometimes it's a diet, or howsoever you want to say, sometimes divided into two, experiencer and experience, sometimes the experiencer, object of experience, and the experience that one gets in contact with a certain object of experience. So these are the divisions that appear in that which is only consciousness, Brahman, one without a second. There are no divisions. The same way the space is not divided by the containers, the pots, the clay pots, for example, as the traditional example. Neither the light is divided or fragmented by the object it reflects upon. No, the light is always there, the space is always there. Those two examples, they show clearly the nature of Satchit Brahman. And the most intriguing fact, is that because of Brahman, our very nature, the only reality as the consciousness of the observer, this consciousness, this Brahman, is so subtle, although it is our very nature. If we say my very nature are my the atoms, and constituted my cells and so on. My physical is my nature, or my psychology is my nature. But there is something which is much more fundamental and therefore more subtle that cannot be pointed to as this or that. So if it cannot be figured out as something that can be described as this or that, and then the common conclusion is that it is non-existent. And no wonder scientists and all kinds of other philosophies uh, believe in duality, in plurality, and they don't believe in Brahman, God, as the only reality, because it cannot be pointed to as this or that, It can only be pointed to as one's very nature, and this one's very nature can never be verified and validated except for the one who understands them. And then, we have no way to prove. The only way to prove, like there is an expression that Ramji used to say much, the saying of the pudding is in the eating it. Can you repeat that expression, please? The proof of the pudding, huh?
That's it. The proof of the pudding is in the eating.
You cannot prove it unless you eat it, you taste it. So God is never going to be proved because it can only be proved by those who somehow eat and taste it and validate it. And that is the funny situation we spiritual people find ourselves in, So in the Taittiriya, if I'm not wrong, there is one of these that suggests the meditation upon space. Space cannot even be seen when it's such a conceptual uh, object. We can conceive the space almost, and we don't see it. We cannot smell it. We cannot touch the space. We cannot taste it. It is not a perceptible substance. And because it's not available through the five sense, perceptive sense, it does not prove its non-existence. It just proves that we don't have the proper instruments to perceive it. Therefore, Brahman is not an object of perception. And if it cannot be perceived by the five senses, it cannot be inferred because inference depends on the five sensory perception. And it's therefore we can understand certain philosophies that says that since it cannot be perceived, it is nothing. It's emptiness, It's the void, nothingness, and those concepts, which is understandable because more often than not, you realize your true nature as the most subtle of the subtle when the mind is not touch a single object, not even conceptual objects. In that profound silence, this direct knowledge takes place. And then one believes that you need to empty your mind completely, which is not wrong, but it's not completely right as well. Because yoga suggests that we should make an effort to empty the mind of all kinds of thoughts. And that will produce a beautiful, a nice feeling sense of bliss and ananda, which becomes somehow a very subtle object to which we superimpose upon Vaina, upon Brahman. So Vedanta says that Brahman, this all-pervasive, most subtle of the subtle, is not nothing, it's not emptiness, but it is the fullness of that which is the only reality. Because it's more subtle, we believe that it's nothingness. But it's nothing in respect to all objects, saguna, all guna-made objects, all prakriti made from objects. It's free from all those things coming from the gunas. It's empty of anything coming from the gunas. Therefore, our five senses that can capture only this constitution made out of the gunas will never reach it, will never touch it, will never experience it. But because the fact of not being made out of gunas, this Brahman is nirguna or guna chitta. It does not mean to say that is non-existent. Therefore, we say that Brahman is a nature of fullness, wholeness, and total completion without any parts, one without a second. It's consciousness, existing consciousness. So by meditating upon Akasha in Taittiriya, third chapter, we'll see the description of this meditation. Akasha is prescribed to make the intellect extremely subtle to understand Brahman, which is much more subtle than space, is much subtler than Prakriti of Maya, is the substratum of the entire Mithya superimposition. But when we look at these descriptions, we get the impression that it's the Brahman is of the nature of void or nothingness. Krishna and all our scriptures, which distinguish us from all these emptiness, nothingness philosophies, is that our scriptures say that Brahman is not a negative emptiness, nothingness, no thing. No, it is a full thing. It is a positive entity. It's a whole entity. Mm. It is everywhere, but not accessible through the five senses. So then it appears that it's emptiness or void and so on. And there is only one way for us to capture Brahman as our very intrinsic true nature, which is the most subtle of the subtle, is to make our mind as subtle as possible, as sattvic as possible. The mind at the beginning is more gross, dense, too much tamaguna and rajoguna. It cannot vibrate somehow, to find synchronicity, or how you say, I forgot the other expression. Resonance. Resonance.
Resonance.
Resonance with something which is the most subtle. The mind has to become subtler and subtler to be able to resonate with that. It's understandable in simpler language. We say the mind has to become more contemplative, the ability to contemplate on things which are a little bit more subtle. People sometimes think that a contemplative mind is a mind that can focus on something. No, that is one side of it. The mind has to be able to develop one-pointedness, the ability to focus. One can focus on something, as dense as the wall or the fifth dimension. So you're going to keep your mind there around those concepts or those images or the picture of Krishna. So this is not a subtle mind. A subtle mind is a mind that has not only focus, but had subtlety to focus the mind on something extremely subtle. This is also referred to as expansion of the mind and subtlety of the mind. The mind is going to be holding to something that is so subtle, so abstract, yet is the only reality. It's extremely subtle, difficult to somehow to bring. But if the mind is really refined and subtle, purified, it's going to somehow find its way to hold itself upon such a symbol of reality as Brahman. Brahman is a symbol of reality. And the only advantage of self-knowledge, I mean, when we put in terms of searching for the true nature of reality, of God, as Sat, the reality, the truth, the only thing that makes it really very valuable is once you get in touch with reality, you have to then understand, furthermore, that the reality is non-dual. Okay? The reality is consciousness, and there is only one consciousness. So otherwise, people go around in all these circles talking about reality in the esoteric, mystical, this is reality. This is not reality. This is more of dream, more of projection, more of phenomenal objects of experience, of concepts, It's not reality. Reality is the light of consciousness shining, reflecting upon the human intellect to produce certain concepts such as the interdimension, this and that. People are searching for reality. We see new reality. It's unbelievable. And people, it's almost impossible to help someone to stop doing that, Even if someone very close to you, you cannot do that, And reality is that which is one without a second. Therefore, it's the only solution for the samsara problem, the attribution of reality to duality. I myself and the phenomenal world of objects I experience, and I try to find reality. No, you're gonna try to find it. You're gonna find a reality that satisfies you only as satya, because it is consciousness, the only reality, one without a second, and then by implication, it means to say is limitless and infinite, because it's the only reality. You are consciousness, there is only consciousness, this is reality. Therefore, we have this pull towards this search. We want to get in contact with the true nature of reality. Why? Because is of a non-dual nature. Oh, but I like duality. Okay. Okay, you like duality. Be careful not to keep attributing more and more reality to duality. Play with duality, but be careful because it's very subtle the way we attribute reality to duality. Therefore, the mind has to be made very subtle to search for reality, knowing that is the only solution for the human predicament. The mind takes time to become subtle, maybe months, maybe years, maybe some new births, but know that ultimately only by making the mind subtle and knowing Brahman as your true nature, you're gonna find peace. Once you know Brahman as your true nature, this inconceivable Brahman as the only goal, then you are close to conclude your journey in this duality. And this Brahman, the ultimate goal, is difficult to be understood. And it's difficult. So I'm saying Krishna is struggling to describe the nature of Parabrahma. The disciple Arjuna is struggling to understand. And Swamiji says, and I'm struggling, trying to help, trying to explain, because that goes back to all descriptions of the menu in the restaurant is not going to satisfy us, no matter how beautiful the description of the flavors and tastes of that meal may be, but not. And so all descriptions of the nature of Brahman, the nature of reality, and so on, is just a pointer. We need to stop trying to lick the menu again and again, order the food, and enjoy the meal. The verse 18, it is the light of all lights. It's said to be beyond ignorance. It is knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the goal of knowledge present in the heart of all human beings. It is the knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the goal of knowledge. So it's there's not much I can say here. It's the light of the lights. As we know, light is a wonderful symbol. It dispels darkness. Darkness symbolizes ignorance, and lights symbolize knowledge, knowing things. We need the light. And our physical light is a nice analogy, but there is a light of the light, We say the light of the light, which means to say is the consciousness behind or beyond the mind. Okay, it is the space of the space, it's the mind of the mind, and so on. And this light is beyond ignorance. It's said to be beyond ignorance. And we have an expression, and Ramji used to play with it very often. It is very to the point, and says, the light of the lights is beyond darkness and even light. It reveals darkness and illumination of our physical sun, let's say. It's said beyond ignorance. And then Ramji used to present us to the fact that it's beyond knowledge and ignorance. Okay? Why? It's a light that reveals what I know and what I am ignorant about. Okay? And he used to take it to simple, practical terms. Say, yes, because I know what I know and I know what I don't know. So it's beyond knowledge and ignorance. It is a knowledge that goes beyond the triad, knower, object of knowledge, and knowing a certain object. So you have this triad. And knowing the light of lights, which is beyond knowledge and ignorance, okay, is the light which illumes and reveals the phenomenal world, allowing us to get knowledge in respect to this phenomenal world, but ultimate this knowledge, this consciousness, this reflect consciousness, it must turn upon itself. When the soul is mature enough, it turns upon itself and starts inquiring to see, I'm trying to know things of this phenomenal world, but I want to know where is the source of this light. I want to know this consciousness I have, this mind I have, this reflect consciousness, this human consciousness. It must have its own source. And I want to turn upon that source. And that begins the process of self-inquiry that leads to self-knowledge. And Vedanta presents this Atma Vichara, the tracing back, reflect consciousness to limitless non-dual consciousness as the way to go. Okay? And then Ramana Maharaj, not long ago, came present more simple concepts such as turn to the source and inquire, where is the mind rising from? Where is the source from where this mind, this reflect consciousness is coming from? So if you trace it back to its source, you're gonna find the nature of reality and you're gonna feel okay. So, of course, the same way people in contact with Vedanta goes about say, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, yes, Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, and all this declaration. If we do repeat those mechanically or mentrically, it does not help. In the same way, following the instruction of Ramana Maharaj, if one does, who am I, who am I, who am I, mechanically, it's not going to do much good. So either ways. So Vedanta presents an incredible body of knowledge that proves to the intellect, because this knowledge it must take place in the intellect, is going to satisfy with the intellect based on lots of several logics, okay, based on analysis of our very, very experience of the phenomenal world through this deeper examination of our assumptions. It's going to prove the intellect that the true nature of the intellect is limitless consciousness. So the knowledge is going to take place in the intellect. Okay. Not, therefore, Ramana himself used to say, by knowledge and knowledge alone, the self can be realized. So it's going to take place in the intellect. The intellect must be satisfied. And the intellect has to be satisfied through examining the logic that has somehow produced this hardwired ignorance, aham, body, mind as me. Okay, and then just deconstruct that to construct a different one, which is aham brahmasmi. This aham brahmasmi needs to be sustained by this entire body of knowledge that gives us, at least to begin with, this intellectual certainty until the knowledge becomes direct. So I'm saying that because after all, what's going to liberate us is a pull that comes from the self, pulling this reflect consciousness, pulling the ahamkara to its source. We may call it grace or blessings, by the self, through the self will be realized. So, but it requires us to make some steps forward towards this goal. We make some effort, stay in touch with the scriptures, and then going that which is fundamental for this final understanding, which is nididhyasana, profound meditation, making good use of this body of knowledge that gives us the certainty that this intellect, which is subject to change and insecurity and this and that, is of the nature of non-dual limitless consciousness. So once we have this certainty in respect to the logic, and then the pull is even stronger, and one feels more and more attracted to this last stage called nididhyasana, okay, going into deep meditation, contemplate the same way Ramana used to propose, who am I, who am I, who am I? He was never really meaning to propose that as a mechanical inquiry, but profound meditation in which the I, the ahamkara, is reassessing its sense of identity. Am I this mind? Am I this physical body? Here Krishna says that Satrupam Brahman is in the form of pure existence, which is in the form of pure existence, formless existence, is the same as Atma, which is formless consciousness principle. Because as we know, existence is self-contained. It does not need the formless phenomenal world to prove its existence. Existence exists in the absence of this phenomenal world. And as we know, conscious existence is an independent, all-pervading principle, entity that enlivens the body. Not being limited by the boundaries of the body, it expands far beyond, this mitya. I remember Ranjit saying it's a small little thing, like a small little thing that happened on your nose. This is mitya, the phenomenal world, past, present, future, and all the knowledge. Something so small, and consciousness is much beyond all universe. It's just a construct to point to the vastness of that which is one without a second. This consciousness is equal to existence, Sat Chit Brahman, existing consciousness, Brahman. And Krishna described this consciousness by a special word called Jyoti. Jyotisan Mapi Jyoti. Krishna borrows the Upanishad expression throughout, because whenever the topic of Brahman comes, it's all extracted from the Upanishads. This expression is extracted from the Mundaka. Jyot means light. Jyotsan, Jyoti means light of lights. Here we go. The light of the lights. Like in Kena Upanishad, the eye of the eye, that's what we have seen. The ear of the ear. We have the light of the light. Those are all the same concept. That which is behind of all the constitution, all objects, and its unique constitutions. Vedanta, the word light is used in a technical sense. I have told you before. Vedanta light means that in whose presence things are known and recognized. Okay? Is the illuminator. Nothing escapes this light of consciousness. In the presence of consciousness, things are illumined and experienced, known, or recognized. Light is also referred as a pramana, that in which presence things are known and experienced. From this standpoint, all the luminaries in the sky are called lights. The sun is called light. The moon is called light. Everything here is light. So there are so many lights, so many jyotis. But there is a light which is the light behind all these luminaries. So any lightning object in the sky, in the universe, is illuminating due to the presence of consciousness, existence. During the daytime, because of sunlight, I'm able to know what is in front of me. In the night, I have the moonlight and so on. The Surya Chandra, blah, blah, blah. Lightning, even electricity comes under Viduyut. Electricity is called in Sanskrit Viduyut Shakti. Also, all of them are called lights. Why? In the presence of these pramanas, things are illumined and known. If electricity goes, you cannot know anything. So, and then the bulb is going to illumine, but electricity is behind the bubble. So the electrical grid, and then there is a lot of other factors behind sustaining the electrical grid. These are all pramanas. In their presence, things may be known. Extend this principle, Upanishad says that every sense organ can also be called light. In the presence of the sense organ, things are known. So he's breaking down the mechanism by which we know what we know in our environment. We have seen it, this breakdown in Drisha Viveka. And here and there in different Upanishads. Now they are all pramanas. So in this context, the sense organs are also referred as light, because in the presence of the sense organs, things are known. So more to the point, light is consciousness and manifests as reflect light of consciousness, which is the mind. So the mind in anchored to a body accessing the world through the five senses is indeed illumining its environment, therefore gaining knowledge. So the true knowledge, the true light is consciousness, but the closest to consciousness is the subtle body, the mind. It reflects the light consciousness, allowing us to illumine our environment and to try to understand what's going on. But here, everything is being put into the concept of everything is a light, because light was defined as that without which in Hold's presence things are known. So if we don't have the sense organs, we cannot know. If I lose my eyes, my vision, I cannot know the colors and the forms of the namarupas. I cannot see the sun because I got blind. So therefore, in the absence of any one of these pramanas, I may not have access to knowledge, and that goes to electricity and all the other five senses. So in the absence of my hearing capacity due to sicknesses or old age, I cannot access the world of sound. So there is one small light missing there. I have other lights, but I lost one of them. And then time goes by, and then you may lose two of them. So you may lose the ability to get the smells of the objects around, and so on. All are pramanas, instruments of knowledge. They are being referred here as light. And then we go to the extreme to say that even the intellect, which is logic, is a form of light. Through reasoning, and logic and analysis, we can get to know things. And then also the intellect, the cognitive process of inquiry, of research, all of that is a form of light. Reasoning is a light as well, because it is within this reasoning that things can be understood. So there are many small lights, small pramanas, which is a better term to avoid any esoteric connotation, means by which knowledge is acquired. Without it's a very, very complex sequence of pramanas within the body mind sense complex, which brings about knowledge. And then in the Drisha we saw that we need to see who is the true pramana, what is the true pramana, what is the true light, what is the true seer, what is the true hearer. In the Brihadaranya Upanishad, it says that words also are light. So now we use the reasoning. Reasoning is based on words put together as, suggest some concepts. All of these are small lights, small pramanas. They are part of this pramana, body, mind, sense complex. Suppose there is a visitor coming to see you, and when the visitor comes in, the electrical power goes, he does not know its way to the bathroom, and he needs to go to the bathroom. And then we need to give them a description, because I don't have candles, I don't have battery light and anything. So you just go here, and then you turn, and the corridor is the second on the left, the second door on the left. Those are words. No? I'm going to illumine your way with words. Yeah? Therefore, in Brihadaranya, it's said that even the words can be said to be lights. They are going to illumine, illumine what you will be able to know and do. So staying in this direction, Upanishad say that the ultimate light is consciousness. In the presence of consciousness alone, you can know everything. And if consciousness is not there, an inert thing cannot know anything. So now we have this incredibly complex body, mind, sense complex that function through all these intermediary kind of small lights. Ta 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 ta. Pramanas, pramanas, pramanas. If there is one or two or three missing, and then you are not really having a good access of what's going on. Huh? So there are some small lights missing, small pramanas missing. Yeah? So, but then there is a source of light, the light of the light, as it's present in this verse. Without that, none of these intermediary pramanas exist and work. So if the fundamental source of light, which is consciousness, the true illuminator, revealing all this, process by which we gain knowledge, experience. So if that source of light is not there, and then there is no question of having any intermediary pramanas, because the main pramana is gone. The main pramana is holding all the intermediary pramanas so that you can have your environment illumined and try to make sense of your human experience. Therefore, there is an ultimate light in whose presence you can know everything, without which you cannot know anything. That light is consciousness, the illuminator. If that light of consciousness is not there, none of other lights, such as the physical lights in the sky and in the universe, neither those supposed called lights, because they are somehow part of this chain which allows the intellect, the body, mind, sense complex illumine and experience its environment. If the source of light, the true source of light, the only really illuminator is not there, the sense organs are useless, everything is useless, your cognitive capacity to reason and explain things is over, it's gone. Einstein brain is preserved in a bottle, they say, but that powerful brain, you can talk to that brain, and the brain is inert because the pramana, the brain is no longer hooked to the fundamental pramana, which is consciousness, that in which presence knowledge can take place. Therefore, even the greatest intermediary pramana is meaningless and useless in the absence of the true pramana, which is light of consciousness in analogy, the consciousness principle. Therefore, this consciousness principle is called the light of all lights. The light in whose presence alone the other lights become meaningful. So the intermediary pramanas, they are meaningful if you have the very source. we can see that in analogy. If the electrical grid has a problem in its fundamental source, okay, so all the distributions of electrical power all over a city, become meaningless because there is a problem at the source level. Therefore, we have this powerhouse of consciousness without which all other pramanas are meaningless, useless. The light of consciousness is a unique light with which you can illumine or know even your ignorance, your darkness. This is interesting thing to know. If you take local light, this light can illumine everything. But it cannot illumine darkness. The physical light, there is a very nice, most probably he's gonna talk, yeah, the Mrs. Night, the Miss Darkness. You heard the story, no? It's a beautiful example. So the light, as we know, the physical light, it can never touch darkness because coming in contact with the darkness is dissipates. Because darkness is a negative entity and light is a positive. Swami Shimaya nicely says some people went and told Surya a story that Shimaya nicely says. Maybe Shimaya came up with this story, I don't know. There is a beautiful, somebody told the Surya Deva, there is a beautiful lady, and I know you want to get to marry to someone. What's her name? What's her Miss Darkness or Miss Night? In Sanskrit, night is present in a feminine gender. Therefore, there is the name of girls there referring to night or darkness. Nitsa or Hatri. So in fact, we have a prayer in Veda which is called Hatri Suktam. Very nice. So it's a beautiful Devata, this lady. And Surya Devata got interested. And then he said, where shall I go to meet her? He said, you have to go down. And she stays in the darker side of the planet, of the earth. You have to travel. Once you get there, you travel to meet her. And the rest of the story you know. Surya was going around and around, round and round, and never find darkness because wherever it goes, there is light. The sunlight is powerful, but will never be able to illumine darkness. The difference between the symbols of consciousness and existence is that they are analogy, they're metaphor, they always have some flaws. Okay, here we say that the sunlight has a limitation, can never illumine darkness, whereas the consciousness is the only pramana, the only light which is capable of illumining darkness as well. How so? So it's going to allow you to know what you know and to know what you do not know. You're going to know what is ignorance by if you have a honest intellect. In the night darkness, how are you seeing? You are not seeing the darkness through your eyes. Eyes can never see darkness because eyes stop functioning in the presence of no light. Eyes can function in the presence of light only. Therefore, the eyes can never illumine darkness as well. But there is the eye of the eye, the light of the light that surpass all these limitations of the five senses. So how do we gain the knowledge of darkness? It is by a unique method. The consciousness alone illumines darkness, and therefore all other lights are opposed to darkness, because when light is there, darkness will go away. The consciousness alone, the only consciousness illumines darkness, reveals darkness, and therefore all other small lights, such as the sunlight, or even our vision, which is a small light, all these are small lights, are opposed to darkness, meaning to say darkness is going to cancel those small lights, or they cannot coexist, because when light is there, darkness will go away. Consciousness is the only light which can coexist with darkness. Therefore, it is said to be tamasaha para muchayate. Para means unopposed to. It coexists with darkness in the sense that it illumines darkness so that we may be able to make known the unknown in the light of the pramana called Vedanta or Upanishad, the pramana teachings. Unopposed to, and therefore only absolute, is the light of consciousness. And not only that, Yana, Nineya, Yana, Gamyan, this Satchita Brahman alone is in the form of everything. Sarva Brahman, Maya, Jagata. This formless existence, consciousness alone appears as this formed universe. A formless existence, consciousness alone appears as the formed universe. This is the other side of this verse. I was going to comment, but I forgot. It is knowledge. It is the object of knowledge, and it is the ultimate goal of knowledge, present in the heart of all beings. So this is the ultimate goal in terms of knowing, okay? Knowledge, which is consciousness. What is the ultimate goal of consciousness? Is to know its true nature through the Jivatma, the human Jiva. That's the ultimate goal. Is not to know anything out there, howsoever subtle, mystical, esoteric, pleasant, unpleasant, is to know its true nature as the ultimate light, the light of the light. And this light of the light is present in the heart of all beings. Okay, it is within us. It needs to be known directly, doubtlessly. This is the ultimate goal, the purpose of all this birth and death. So this Brahman alone appears in the form of the entire universe, Jagata. You may ask, how is it possible? Again, you have to go back to science. Just as formless energy gets converted into formed and tangible matter, energy is intangible and formless. This energy is converted into matter. It becomes tangible. So science has understood that. When matter is converted to energy again, it becomes invisible, intangible, and subtle. So if intangible energy can appear as tangible matter, Vedanta says the non-tangible Brahman is ultimately appearing as the tangible universe. And there is no mystery because we can understand it by understand science. The only difference is this Brahmana God is much more subtle than anything subtle in Mithya. But it is this, the very source of everything, which, without doing anything, appears in the form of everything. Without doing anything, appears in the form of everything, the entire cosmos. Therefore, Yana, Yanya, Inyaya, and Brahman alone is Yana. Yana means the means of knowledge. It's the means of knowledge, is the only knowledge that seems to be the goal and the purpose of all these souls traveling through so many incarnations. Everything is Brahman. The object that you know is also Brahman. The subject is Brahman. The object is Brahman. The instrument by which you get the knowledge is Brahman. Sarvam Brahman Maya Jagata. Okay. Anything?
I love the light metaphor. It's very useful for meditation and contemplating, doing your nididhyasana.
Yeah, it's as subtle as it can be, meditating upon the nature of light and space as a parallel to that which is the most subtle of the subtle. Are we good for Monday and Tuesday? Nobody's traveling?
I'm good for Monday. I will actually be traveling on Tuesday and the following Tuesday, I
Oh,
think.
okay. You're going to begin working now, Mark?
No, no, I've just got to do an airport run. I've got visitors coming, so I've got to do an airport run, which is like 2.5 hours both ways. So yeah, that counts me out for
Good to
both
go.
Tuesdays, unfortunately.
And if you're not going to be available on Tuesdays, would you like to move it for Wednesday?
Yeah, if we can, this 1 week, that would be fantastic.
You told me 2 weeks you wouldn't be available on Tuesday.
Yeah, this Tuesday and the following Tuesday, I won't be available. So if
Okay,
we could do those two
we
Wednesdays.
go week by week. We are a very small group. We can move things around, and Lynn is happy to have you as well on board. And
Okay.
then we meet next week, Monday and Wednesday. Okay?
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, great. Thanks.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Om Shwara Namaste.
Thank you, Orlando.
Okay. We meet
Yeah, thanks, Alan.
we meet soon again. Bye bye. Thank you.
Okay, okay, bye now.
Bye.